usual, in India, we are late. I don't want to take much time. I wanted to actually spend a lot of time with you guys asking, you asking questions and trying to figure it out. You need to understand that I'm not a lawyer. I'm engineering by education, and then I did some management, and then I did FRM. So I'm more like an investment guy doing investments for the last 10 years across multiple alternate investment assets. And right now I'm running my own fund. So as I said, I'm not a lawyer. You can't take my advice as a very stringent advice. All of that is actually going to come from the term sheet, what I've written in the past, right? And also the portfolio companies, whenever they're raising capital, those term sheet knowledges also I'm trying to conceal and give it to you guys. As I said, we don't have enough time to cover everything on the term sheet. What I'm going to... It's not audible? It's not audible? Great. Please stop me whenever you guys are finding something completely odd. I'm okay to take any negative comments as well. So, where was I? Yeah, we don't have enough time. Can I know how much time we have got to closure? How much time we have for closure? We have 45 minutes. So I'll probably wrap everything by 20-25 minutes. I want you guys to actually ask as many questions you wanted, right? Yeah, I'm giving you the answer sheet right front. You can go through it, you can actually read it and ask me anything that you wanted to actually double click on. This is going to cover 95% of what the usual terminologies are going to be there. So this will probably lead to a PDF download, and then everything is there. Done? Yeah, still see some cameras. Okay, so how many are founders here? Oh, great, everyone. How many have raised capital before? Oh, sorry. How many have raised capital before this? Only one. Okay, so this is not for you, by the way. This is for the beginners, so you can decide what you want to do. How many have already seen a term sheet before, read a term sheet before? The format, there's 1, 2, 3, yeah. So I think this is a perfect mix of what I wanted. Right, so I think the previous speaker gave an amazing talk on raising capital. That's actually, you're not even stepping into the process of getting invested. Now, you can actually do an amazing pitch. You can convince the investor, you can have a very fancy PPT done, you can actually have a very fancy talking done, and then FOMO, the nice way of doing things, and then you can get here. Now, the real problem is, term sheet is actually the decision maker on your company. Too restrictive, too degrading, your company is gone. And the fun fact is, none of my founders, whom I wrote term sheet to, they never liked the terms after signing them. So that's how it is. So you need to understand that term sheets are issued from investors, very specifically from the institutional investors, to protect the downside. Now, downside is not only for us, the downside also goes to the founders who are actually raising the capital. Now, it would include, if you look at the PDF, it would include clauses like cliff, or it would include the clauses like vesting, revesting. All these clauses are given to actually continue the momentum of the company. What if the founder leaves after 1 year or 2 years? What happens? In a very early stage, I can't afford to lose the founder, right? So the downside protection is also to the company, not only to the investor. So if someone issues a term sheet and you see something completely odd, don't go and fight with them. Understand the rationale and then go and fight with them. All right, so what are we looking at on a term sheet? Like, practically, this is what will cover on the complete term sheet. Every clause will probably fit into one of these clauses. So one, you're looking at who is the owner and how much is the ownership people are taking, and what is the control for that ownership you're giving away. Now, second is your company's long-term vision. As I said, your term sheet is not only a document that says, okay, this is the term, and then you have to actually do this. It also decides what kind of trajectory you're taking. The third point is, it doesn't really say your remuneration and all that, but practically it's going to cover what is the founder's going to hold, what is the ESOP or MSOP that's going to get generated. It's going to say that. All right, so how many understand pre-money, post-money? Yeah, see, very few guys. So very simple, right? Let's say your company is worth 100 rupees, and that's probably the pre-money before the money is coming in. And the post-money minus pre-money is the amount which you're raising. And as simple as that. Now, when you're actually going and making conversations on a term sheet level, If you just get confused between pre-money and post-money, you're practically gone, because now the variation, what we're talking in terms of percentage, could be over and about 20, probably 15, 20%. So you need to be very careful about it. The second one is a control. Now, when you look at the term sheet and you just read it 5, 6 times, you will be able to understand the language which says that I decide as an investor, I decide the next round that's going to happen. I decide the valuation, because I'll have a clause that says that you cannot go for a round without my permission, right? Now, as I said, the trajectory of the company is now getting dictated. Your share transfers, let's say you wanted to share transfer some part of your, let's say I want to liquidate 1% to another guy, secondaries. I decide whether I should allow you to do that. I have a clause that's called first right of refusal. I'll say, no, you're not supposed to sell it to him, sell it to me. And I take more ownership. I'll have a better negotiation. I'll have a discount on your company. Anti-dilution. The sheet also contains what mechanisms anti-dilutions are. I wanted you to actually read it. If you're not understanding, go and Google it. This is very, very important. The most restrictive way of people putting in clauses inside your term sheet are full ratchet anti-dilution, which is very wrong. And you will just find a word saying that it's a full ratchet. The nuances of full ratchet is completely gone. Let's say you raise, I invest in your company for ₹1 crore valuation. I put in like 30 lakh or 40 lakh. And you go for the next round, which is substantially lower than 1 crore. Practically, you will lose, absolutely a large amount of ownership in your company. That's a bizarre way of doing it. Ideally, people wanted to put it as weighted average. You can read the nuances on it. I'm not going to double click on it unless you guys have some specific questions. ROFR and ROFR I already spoke about. There are protective provisions. I decide how much of details you need to actually disclose to people. This includes your existing angel investors as well. If I'm the lead of the, if I'm the lead, which is whom I'm issuing the term sheet, I decide what kind of MIS should go out of the company, right? It also decides whom are you talking to, how much are you talking to. I decide everything there. MIS is probably your performance of the company on a quarter-on-quarter basis or a month-on-month basis. So the earlier you are, the more the frequency is actually very high. So typically, I actually get a month-on-month basis MIS. When the company matures, they go to a quarter-on-quarter kind of an MIS. So these would contain critical information like your revenue, what is your CM1, what is your cost, have you actually acquired new customers, how are your employees doing, how much have you hired, what is the payout. I also decide, let's say you are actually substantially paying someone. I also decide how much of ESOP is going to that person, how much of revenue is going to that, remuneration is going to that person. I decide all that. And the last is the board seat. I've seen founders missing out on the first 5 or 6 points and argue on the board seat. Now the board seat is actually very mystical. Even though, let's say you are fighting saying that I'm not going to give you a board seat, I can still have 100% restriction on you on what you're doing on the first 5 clauses, and people just miss it out. Now the exit term is even more fascinating. I've seen a lot of nuances that's coming into exit terms recently. So when I invest, right, this is actually a very arranged marriage with a divorce notice. So I would probably say that I wanted to exit you guys in 4 or 5 years. And I don't know what happens. You decide, you take your role of getting the money to me, right? I say after 4 years, if you don't get me the money, I'm going to actually go to a competitor and sell your company. That clauses will be there, right? And you don't understand this. Now, I would typically put a clause saying that after 4 years, I can talk to anyone. And that means your competitors as well. That means that I decide the valuation, I and your competitor decide the valuation, I decide what kind of benefits I can take. I have seen people starting to put very weird language here. People put like, I wanted an exit at 30% IRR. Now they have actually stopped looking at liquidation preferences of 2x or 3x. They straight went on to saying that whatever may happen, I want to take 25% or 30% IRR of your company. Now imagine that you actually did a lot of hard work. After 3 or 4 years, you're trying to sell the company at a good valuation, probably 10-5x of the valuation that has happened. And there's a fair chance that you don't make any money out of it. The VC makes majority of the money of it. And all that boils down to a very simple language on the term sheet that goes into the definitives. Drag along, tag along, the definitions are already there. I'm not going to double click on it. Now this is very interesting. Everyone thinks that, I have the ownership of the company after raising capital, right? That's what everyone thinks. Let's say after this round, I'll probably hold 70%, 80% of the company. That's what everyone thinks, but there is something called vesting. Now this is where the downside protective clauses come for the company and the investor. Let's say the founder leaves. This vesting clock kicks in. And for the time period he's there in the company, that is the percentage he'll get in the company. Let's say I say over 4 years, 1 year cliff. That means that every 1 year, 80% divided by 4 is actually vested with you. That's all you own. You don't own anything else. You will probably have to transfer that to a new guy or to the company. We decide later point in time. Now, don't imagine that everything is owned by your company. Tomorrow, let's say you do something completely wrong. We say that willful neglect, right? Let's say you just forgot to file some papers, and there's a fine on the company. With that, we can actually trigger you being fired. As simple as that. Let's say as an investor, I see the company going very big, which typically none of these guys do. But the language is so open that a small paper which you didn't file, a company got a penalty, I can actually say that it's a willful, neglect, and then I can actually fire you from there. Now, do people do that? No, people don't typically do that. But that's a line that actually, that's what it means. Now, ESOP typically play around this as well. Now, ESOP is practically going to your employees, right? You decide what happens, after a year, it goes to the employees. And what we always say is, you actually carve it out from the founder's provision. That's the best thing to do for the investor level. But you imagine that I'm investing in the company. I'm not paying the employees the remuneration. Instead of that, I'm actually not in cash, I'm paying them in terms of stock, which means that the investor is also part of that complete pool, right? Why is a founder supposed to carve out the ESOP provisions and then, do the payout the employees? Now, you need to be very strong on this, saying that before you come in, I'm going to actually carve out, and either you are part of the pool, or before you're coming in, I'm actually going to separate out and then do the job. Never do an ESOP allocation after the investment is being done, right? That's going to hurt you more. Yeah, this is something which I recently found. Term sheets are not binding, by the way. You sign it, there's a clause that says that probably 30, 40 days, you're not supposed to shop to people, you're not supposed to say that I have a term sheet. The FOMO, what the previous speaker was speaking, you can do that before the term sheet is happening. Typically, if you wanted to go and tell that I have a term sheet from an ex-investor, if you're using that ex-investor name, you're supposed to take the permission of the investor, right? That's all it says. Now, a lot of the new age guys have started putting breakage fee into that. They actually say that if I do my work, and then you actually stop responding, and then you don't want to take the money, you are liable to pay me 10 lakh or 15 lakh, and they're saying something like 5% of the round size, 10% of the round size. Never agree to that kind of language. That becomes binding technically. So a term sheet will be very clean, saying that you want to walk away, you can walk away. And if you don't find that clause, you need to negotiate very hard on getting that clause done on your term sheet. Yeah, so as I said, people have started putting in IRR numbers. Never agree to that. It's going to hurt your returns. People have started putting 5x, 4x liquidity. So the liquidity preference works this way, right? I'm putting in my money, and I'm the risk taker in terms of capital. And the founder is also putting the time into it, taking the risk. He's probably foregoing the salary, what he's doing. So there is some kind of commitment for him to do the work as well. The minute you say that I have to have a 5x liquidation preference, why would I do that? Right? I probably, as an investor, I'm already taking the risk. So what happens if the downside is like my money comes back with absolute safety? I'm never doing an FD kind of an investment, right? Never agree for a 5x or a 4x liquidation preference. 2x is agreeable if the valuation is like amazingly high. For instance, the Zepto guys raised multiple rounds, and I had a chance to look at the numbers, and then their liquidation preference is quite high because the earlier round investors put in a very small check and they're holding a substantial stake. Right? And it's okay to have a higher liquidation preference. They're taking huge risks, they're putting in huge money, perfectly valid. But if you're actually doing a Series A round, probably $3-4 million, a 5x or a 4x multiple doesn't make any sense for raising the capital. You better find a new investor to do that. I already spoke about the deal break fee. This is also something very interesting. So what people started doing is, if I'm investing in your company, let's say I value your company at 100 crores. I say that I can put in money at 100 crores. Then you actually give a 2% advisory equity to my other firm. Right? Now, typically, for the same money, I'm actually pumping up the valuation, but technically, if you do a weighted average, the valuation is much lower than what it used to be. Right? This gets flagged in the next investors coming in. So now what happens is, let's say I'm an investor and then I find this kind of scenario, I say, no, I can't work with the valuation of what you raised last time because your last valuation was actually pumped up. You typically gave the same equity to the same investor, but probably different entity, and then you're trying to fool me. If people get to know, that's a very bad thing. You would be asked to go and renegotiate with the existing investor. Better not do it. Do not give any advisory shares in any form, unless that advisory shares are coming with some kind of a commitment. Let's say he's saying that I'll bring you X dollars of sales, and then you give me this advisory shares. Makes absolute difference from saying that I just wanted advisory shares. That's going to impact on a long term if the next round of investors not okay with. Yeah, it's never a do it yourself. please don't assume that this is a very simple sheet, 3-4 pages. What has started happening is the larger funds now give a one pager which just says valuation, agree or don't agree. Just don't go for shopping. That's all it says. Probably three, four paragraphs, and it's very clean. But the early stage guys have a lot of clauses. You have to actually employ a lawyer who has already done it. So there are transaction lawyers who have already done this, and they would actually tell you what kind of impact you're looking at. A lot of founders, of course, very smart people, they actually go, try to read the document, like whatever I gave it as a cheat sheet, there are like probably few others which is floating around. Universities have published term sheets, samples and all that. They read it, they try to understand it, but you need to understand that term sheet has evolved in the last 5 decades. The lawyers have actually made sure that every downside protection for investor is protected at all places. So even if you are understanding it, it doesn't mean that you're understanding every scenario which is actually used to come to that final term sheet. So always get the lawyer and ask people who have already done that, right? It's very easy for you to go and ask another founder saying, is this clause is there, what do you guys think? It's very, very easy. And the founder would be very open to give his suggestions on understanding. So the person who raised, is he there? He's gone, Raisin? Okay. Oh, is there? So what do you think? Like, do you regret any of your term sheet? Not yet. Great. Good for you right now. Oh yeah, so this is very, very important. You're not yet there. The term sheet is probably a 10x smaller page of a definitive agreement. This becomes the agreement point for you to negotiate on your, the bigger document. The bigger document is all full of heavy clauses, which probably will mean whatever the term sheet has been given. So you still have to have a lot of energy to negotiate, probably like 30 pager or a 40 pager to actually get the investment. Yeah, you need to, the term sheet is very simple, right? It's called term sheet. Just read it 5-6 times and then get a lawyer, and then you'll be able to understand what it really means. You cannot fight with the investor. So now this is what happens with a lot of founders. They actually see a clause, they don't have the rationale, they just come back saying that I don't want this clause. And the VC doesn't have a reason to agree. He just says that, no, please go and, I'm not going to change. That's all the reaction is going to be. In the term sheet, there are 2 different columns. One are the columns where you can go and negotiate. One are the columns where you can absolutely have the no power of negotiation. Right? You need to know what kind of columns you can go and negotiate. It will be there in the term sheet. Now, if you go and say that I don't want this term, you need to go with a rationale, right? And never argue. When you're working with the smartest lawyers, right, who have already done transactions, they will tell you, listen, we will actually have this, which is the most impactful, because when you are actually doing a negotiation, you need to give some points and take some points, right? And these kind of critical versus non-critical thing, it'll happen only when you have an expert sitting next to you. It'll never happen when you guys are actually deciding what to do. And the last one is you need to make sure that the term sheet, the first term sheet what you're receiving, and if you're actually considering to take the term sheet very seriously, whatever terms which are very restrictive, which are having high liquidation preference, or I have very restrictive clauses on your everything, right? That's going to be the derivative for the next term sheet as well. So if the next investor is coming in, it's going to be a very easy copy paste of what the previous term sheet is, unless you have Tiger Global coming in and saying that you can do whatever you want to do. Like very few guys actually do that. Yeah, my cheat sheet is back. I would love to actually take any questions which you guys think. I know I didn't want to give the full gyan of what a term sheet is. I have already given you the content. I wanted any questions which you guys think is relevant. And I would be happy to take it offline now. We still have 20 more minutes. So it's very simple. Before the round happens, just segregate the ESOPs. It is always, so the nuances happens, the nuances happens very simple, right? Let's say there is an investor already there, and you wanted to create a ESOP pool. It is always better before the round you do it. The next set of investor also doesn't allow you to actually create a ESOP pool after the round is over. That's going to hurt me, so I'm not going to allow you to do that. So always do it before the round happens. That's what typically people do it. It really depends on what stage the company is. So typically I ask for, let's say I do a under Series A kind of a deal. I say I need to have 10 to 12% kind of an ESOP, depending on what kind of money they are raising, what kind of talent they are doing it. I would always say 10 to 12% is fairly good enough. You want to do 20%, it's up to you to do it. No, it doesn't. No. We decide the salaries. So that will come on the definitives. Yeah, that is the last step. So deliberately it's been kept as a last step, so that you don't have a choice. Yeah, it'll be just before the signing this happens. That's that's really on the founder. So it has nothing to do with it, with any of the factors. It's the founder who is able to negotiate and get that number. I had very senior folks taking 10, 12 lakh salary. I had very young folks taking 30, 40 lakh salary. So it really depends on quality of founders.
Hi.
Yeah.
If the firm is in a pre-revenue stage, so it's like seed funding, they're looking for seed funding kind of funding. So in that case, the angel investors normally do, but is there some institutional investors does? Is there a specific clause for the term sheet, like, or it's the same? It's a separate term sheet?
No. So the 50% of the clauses will still remain. Probably there is some relaxation on the remaining 50%, but majority of the restrictive clauses will be there. You can't actually avoid the restrictive clauses. Now, you need to understand that there is absolutely, if there is an investor who is investing sub-Series A, there is no difference between a seed company and a Series A company. For me, everything is the same. Probably you have a traction at a Series A level, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to give you a lot of clauses. I might be, if you're raising a larger round on Series A, I might be having some relaxations on your revesting. Let's say, this is very important, right? Let's say you got your schedule already vested. Let's say you raised money, 4 years are over, and then all the shares belongs to you, and then you raise a new round. The incoming guy will always tell you to actually revest it. It depends on your negotiation. Typically, if I'm there, I'm going to put 100%. So what I'm right now doing is I'm fighting against myself, saying that I would do that, and then it's you to actually decide if you want to take it or not.
Hey Swarup.
It will be always. So imagine this way, right? You have already raised money from a very restricted VC. Now you have given him a lot of, let's say you have given him a lot of control on everything. We never consider that, by the way. I don't think an angel term sheet is being taken seriously by institutions, because angel is more friendly, right? I mean, we are never that way. Yeah, so as I said, your next document is a derivative of the first document. So it's up to you to actually negotiate with the incoming investor to do it. As an existing investor, I'll be like, okay, man, my money has multiplied. You please negotiate with your existing investor and then do it. Existing investor will be like, you've already given these clauses, why are you not giving me? There are very liberal investors who are okay to actually relax these clauses, but you're not lucky every time. It is, let's say you are running an insurance company. The term sheet given from a fund to an insurance company will be completely different. There will be very minimal restrictive clauses. Because as a fund, if I take too much of control, then I'll be liable to, I'll be questioned. So, yeah, it depends on industry as well.
Hey Swarup, question here.
Hey.
Very much agree with how you said that this should not be DIY, you should run it through lawyers. My question is, even after running it by lawyers, it might be that your downside is not 100% protected, or things have gotten missed in the term sheet that's not actually helping you. Can an AI solution be of some use here? Something along the lines of an instant AI contract review or a term sheet review solution?
Yeah, I know you are promoting your company now.
It's a shameless plug, sorry about that.
Yeah, he runs an AI solution for legal documents. I ran my document and then it gave me some errors which I was like amazed. Right now, I would be working with smart lawyers. I would not be able to afford let's say there is some bias and then the AI doesn't pick that up. And also you need to understand that the AI might not really understand the rationale for that language. So I would still go with a very trained lawyer who has already done a couple of transactions. I'd be very happy to work with them. And they also give you a lot of insights on how to protect yourself. So your AI will give you language. How do you go and argue with an investor? If you're not having a rationale, we don't buy it. As simple as that. The first question when I ask you to remove a clause or modify a clause will be like, why do you want it? Right? And you don't have an answer. If you don't pay the lawyer, you're anyway into the soup. So better pay.
One more query. Some investors, I'm not replying investors. Basically, if they want to get processing fee before term sheet sign, saying that this is a money handling charge or something like that, FDA to RBI thing, is it is it right way to pay the fee upfront before signing the term sheet with investor?
See, I'm actually now going against my peers in the industry. it is not the best practice. Let's say you are doing a private equity round, I think people do it, right? Because there has to be some commitment for people to model and all that. That too, people have now stopped doing that. It's very cliched right now. But if you say that for a 1 crore investment, I need to pay a processing fee, if I'm a founder, I would never do that. The investor is already getting paid to do the work. And if you say that I'm paying him more to even do the work, to start the work, I would not do that. I would not say it's wrong. I would definitely, as a founder, I would not take term sheets from them.
Got it. If the round is like 2 million, 2.5 million means the same scenario you were saying.
I'm getting anyway paid.
Okay.
So if you say that, see, this is the new age way they actually convince investors saying that this is a low cost way of doing things. And they typically charge the founders as a IB fee. This is a new age way of doing things. It's up to you. If you're very desperate to take the money, it's up to you to actually take the money from them. If I'm the founder, I'm not going to actually do that.
Got it. One more question. In the term sheet, some people, some investors, I heard from my friends, my co-founder team, they put lot of classes like property, all these classes which is not relevant to us on the personal side.
Collateral, is it? Personal
something like that.
No,
those kind of things they were putting and asking them to sign. Is it directly we can say those kind of things?
Now we have to actually look at what kind of investment they're raising. If it's a debt type of investment.
That's equity VC round.
No,
okay.
Absolutely no. Like any VC trying to actually grab your personal assets, he's on the wrong side of doing things.
Just I'm from a known perspective, some bad practices I was trying to clarify with you. That's the reason.
No, it is definitely not a good practice to see. Term sheet is something a VC and the founder decides. There is always a good practice and there is always a bad way of doing things. This is a bad way of doing things. I would never ask for a collateral security. If I want to do that, I will run a bank. I'll run a financial institution, then do an NBFC kind of an investment. I'm nowhere there. I am interested on getting 100x from you. I'm not interested in putting a survival clause and then taking the money out. I'm not doing that.
Yeah. One more query: that post money valuation we are getting in tranches. Money will get in tranches, right? After term sheet signed with investors. Suppose for the next round, suppose from C to Series A. So what is the minimum time duration?
It's all very subjective. There is no one answer for this.
Okay.
It's a very subjective way of doing. If someone is actually investing money in tranches, it means that they still do not have the confidence in your company. As simple as that.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
If let's say I have a chance of taking the full equity in the day one, I would always do that. We're done? Yeah. Convertible is practically you're saying that the next round I will actually do it. A lot of guys do it. If the founder is having a VC is now going to ask questions to me. Okay, so let's say it this way, right? If I have full conviction in your company, I will negotiate whatever it takes to take the equity out of you, right? I will never be okay with convertible. Think it this way, right? I am putting my money, you are building the company using my money, and you are saying that I will give a discount in the next round. I would not be okay. If the company is super good, and you are raising a super angel round or a very small seed round, then people agree for a convertible because the value discovery becomes very difficult. We don't know what kind of round you're going to raise next. Let's say you're a very strong, deep tech company like yours, and the discovery becomes very difficult. People are still very interested on putting money. Yeah, why not? I actually have an instance. I actually wrote to a company in the US. I used their product. I loved the product. They were raising like what, 1-2 million when I actually wrote to them. I said, man, take my money. I don't want any discount. Take my money. In the next round, you give me equity. And the founder said no. So it is all on how hard the company is, right? I really found the company to be very hard. They anyway raised $50-60 million after that. I know that's going to happen. But yeah, it is up to the investors thinking how hot you are and then will you accept to the terms. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Thank you, Swarup, for a very educative session. One of the questions I had was, as an institution, we see multiple instances where they have raised money from an angel at a very inflated valuation, like you've said, and the angel, because the founder is not educated in the term sheet or the SHA side, has put in a clause like, oh, okay, if you take a down round, not just anti-dilution, I go 1.5x of like whatever, but in that sense, like as an institution, I cannot go and negotiate or on behalf of the founders. How would you like the founder to address that issue?
So we had instances where I dealt with, I'll tell you two instances. One, right? One, the founder and the super angels work together. such that, they will always have a 100% markup on the last investment what they did. They just made sure that it's going to happen. And they were always talking to the VC saying that my angel investors are never going to agree to that kind of, a lower valuation than that. This is artificially putting a higher bracket and telling people this is what is possible, nothing below this is possible, right? And this bracket is already above what I can consume. If it was below, I would have automatically said yes, right? Now in these cases, we dropped off, by the way, because this was a planned move by the founder, and I didn't want to work with such founders. This is my personal way of working with the founders. I dropped off. There was another instance where an advisory share plus an inflated valuation was there. I said, nothing doing. You want to do a secondary transfer? I'm okay to do a secondary transfer, or else I'm walking off. Because I'm not into the case of working with inflated valuations. Whatever I see as value, I need to work with them. By multiplying your number by 2x or 3x, and then coming to me and saying that from here you give me 2x or 3x doesn't make sense unless you have performed in your business. I would always go to the fundamental saying that, has your business progressed to actually go to the valuation of what you're asking for? If the answer is yes, I'm not going to be biased. I'm going to buy at the valuation what you're asking for, right? A lot of investors go for a renegotiation and all that, but I believe that if the price is right, better don't negotiate and take it. And I also see a lot of founders putting on the pitch deck saying that I'm raising X rupee at Y valuation. Why would you even do that? What if I'm ready to give you a better valuation? Why would you actually put your valuation numbers and then create a mess for yourself? In your pitch decks, better avoid those kind of numbers, which will actually be very harmful for you on a long term. Never put the valuation numbers on the deck. Yeah.
Right. Can you throw some here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you throw some light on CCPS mode of investment?
Everyone does CCPS and CCDS. So, see, what really happens is, as an investor, I probably hold very few equity shares, 1 or 2, just to make sure that I'm on the board. Like if I wanted to have a board control and all that. Typically, it happens over CCPS. CCPS will have it's a very complicated math. I'll just tell you what happens. If you want to have an explanation, you need to go to a lawyer. So what really happens, CCPS will have a multiplier, which will actually say that at this multiple, you get converted to equity, right? It never gets converted unless you typically go for an IPO or you get acquired by someone. It never gets converted. I'll always be a majority CCPS holder or a CCDS holder, right? CCPS, CCDS absolutely makes no difference, except that you have a better hierarchical instrument in place. It doesn't make any sense. But what really happens is, if you raise a lower round, let's say you raise a valuation is probably 50% of the previous round, then this CCPS multiple gets changed, right? And that's why people go for a CCPS kind of an instrument buy. Or else we would have directly taken equity, right? So it's a nuances on how it's get converted. It has nothing to do with, am I a CCPS holder or am I a CCDS holder or am I a equity holder? It is to actually go on to saying that at a worst case scenario, how do I manage things? So if you're signing it for a full ratchet, I will get converted at the lowest cost possible. And let's say you have raised 5-6 rounds, you practically go to zero as a founder. Yeah, a founder has to give whatever. So when you see, it happened in multiple companies. Let's say you are raising at a lower valuation, and if people wanted to exercise anti-dilution rights, the founder's equity goes to substantially lower amount, and then founder exits. I mean, I don't want to name, but you have seen multiple examples on news saying that this happened and then people exited.
Hello. After the term sheet is signed, you have the shareholder agreement also coming through. And if the investor delays in releasing your funds, what do you do?
Delay in releasing the funds?
Yeah. He's not really. There is no timeline put on when the funds.
No, there is a timeline put on the document.
No, if it is not there, then how do you do that?
No, it will be there. How can timeline not be there? So you cannot have an indefinite document. There will be a timeline. Before X date, money has to be transferred, or else the document becomes null and void.
There is a secondary purchase involved in a particular case, and the secondary shares have been bought, but the primary has not been made. Then what do you do that? Halfway it is done.
Bad practice.
Halfway it is done.
See, I've also done that. When we do secondaries at a discount, because we want to save a lot of tax, it's more to do with compliance and tax. Typically what happens is, we actually do the transaction. Let's say today is T for the primary, we do T-1. So yesterday I would have done the secondaries, and if the investor is deliberately delaying to do the primary, there is no way out. There is absolutely no way out. You are practically into a very big trouble if you do that. Yeah. So there is a difference between secondary agreement signing and a primary agreement signing. It's all full trust. If you go to an institution, no one does it. No one can afford to do that, because see, we are in high finance. One mistake we make, the trust actually goes away with a complete ecosystem. It's not only with the founders, the LPs lose trust on us. So at the end of the day, we are risking our career to do that. Please go ahead.
Down the line we find like we want to add a third founder and he wants to come in, but now you can't really issue shares because of the tax component and all that, so the only way is probably the ESOP. But what's your thought on adding new
You can do
founders?
MSOPs.
What is MSOP?
Management, ESOPs in the other wording. So you can do MSOPs. There is a way to do it. Again, your lawyer will explain you to do that. But the quick word is you can actually do an MSOP, or you can actually do a, let's say, see the real problem comes from the taxation.
Yeah.
Right? If you are ready to pay tax, go ahead and do a secondary transfer. And if you're not ready to pay tax, do an MSOP, which your investor has to agree.
So secondary transfer from the founders with the approval of the investors, but then the guy will have to pay tax because
I'll have to decide what you do. So yeah, you have to actually follow a very stringent process on getting there.
So it's better to take them now.
It is better to allot ESOPs on day one rather than to cry at a later date.
Okay.
And anyway, oh yeah, this is very interesting, right? I have seen term sheet which says that any of the unallocated ESOPs, and imagine that this is happening before the investor came in, any of the unallocated ESOP actually goes back to the investors. Yeah, this is a very tricky language. You will never understand what are the nuances if it unless probably now it's like very evident, but if you actually read through a document, a lot of founders miss it. And I also seen in documents saying that, let's say I put in my money, I have a 2x liquidation preference, and there is a new investor who's coming in saying that I wanted a 3x liquidation preference. I have seen a document which says that, very smartly worded by the way, which says that I'm putting in money now also, as pro rata I'm putting in money, but whatever money I put in the previous round, that will also have a 3x pro rata. And everyone has signed that. And no one noticed it. So that's again a very big problem. How could you actually have a upgrade of your previous money to the current round? You can never do that.
I have a statement, probably it's not like a question. I've seen ESOPs in the US, I've seen ESOPs in India. In India, if you take ESOPs, the employees feel that, oh, you got like 1% equity. But it usually comes with a 30-day grace period where you have to decide. And then you'll also have to pay taxes to the government to exercise those rights. So what I've seen in India is that people get employees with the idea of giving ESOPs, but when it comes to exercising them, because of the high cost involved, the taxation, the employees do not take, and then the ESOPs get lapsed.
Yeah. I mean, in fact, this is completely out of the topic, but anyway, I'll tell you examples of a lot of founders really wanted to do that by putting that language, saying that if you don't convert, if you're exiting the company, and if you don't get it converted into equity at X date, let's say 30 days or 40 days, it just goes to zero. And yeah, people don't understand. People just don't understand on what it really means. Yeah, even my brother actually came back to me saying that if I wanted to do this, I need to pay 1 crore tax. Is it worth it? I said, do you think your equity is worth more? Then pay the tax. It is very good practice to keep it open, but just like how I am greedy, they are also greedy. This is not communism, by the way. This is capitalism. So. Yeah, it will go back to the ESOP pool. ESOP is a notion. It is not an actual number. It doesn't mean anything unless it gets converted. Unless you sign the contract and say that yes, this is what I wanted, it's just a number. It doesn't mean anything.
Can the founders subscribe to it or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there is some regulation which doesn't allow founders to subscribe. That's why they actually got into the concept of MSOPs. I'm not sure about it. I'll have to run through a lawyer. I've actually dealt with one of the seniors, but I don't want to give a very open answer. I'm not sure about it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you guys are raising capital, right? I mean, you guys are not going back and saying I'm going to be bootstrapped and then. Am I showing the wrong side of the world? I'm doing injustice to myself. So, I do not know the right answer for it, but what I understand from the lawyers is ESOP has having a lot of provisions legally. You're some way protected, or you have some tax regulations there. MSOP is quite open. It's up to you how you decide to do it. So I don't think it has a lot of regulations there. And MSOPs are done specifically because you wanted to give management more management more shares and all that. So MSOP is typically done for that. So if you're actually an early stage company, you don't have to do that. If you're, let's say, you're a very matured company, let's say you're going IPO in the next 5 years, or 3 years, then it makes sense to retain talent. You don't have any ESOP pool left, so now you need to actually do an ESOP pool. You need to also give founders more equity and all that. Then the only way to do it is through ESOPs. That's exactly why I didn't want to really say that, but there are some regulations that are saying that you can't really give it to the founders on ESOP pool. There's some regulations there.
Yeah, if the founder has sufficient fund to do the bootstrap, is it as advantage to go for the funding?
See, there's no one answer for this question. I'll tell you the hierarchy at which, if let's say I wanted to do a company, I'll tell you the hierarchy at which I will actually run the company. The first primary source of capital for me will be my customers. That is the best source, right? The second source would be my capital. The third source would be VC's capital. If you really wanted to get into a hyperscale phase, right? And then the reverse happens. Your investors are the first, and then the consumer becomes the last. So there's absolutely no one answer for this. If you think that you can actually build $1 million company or $1 billion company out of your own capital, and you are sure about it, yeah, there's no one answer for this. You can go ahead and do it. You want to do it slow? It's up to you. What if your customers are loving you, they're paying in advance, and then you can ship it later? So always, there's an open, this doesn't have an answer, I would say. Right answer.
And also you're mentioning the lawyers actually. So they are a corporate law practicing lawyer, or what law they, I mean?
These guys are professionals who are, so every good law firm, I mean not good, every law firm, if they have a transaction advisory team, those guys are the guys who actually do the deal. If you go to a lawyer and say, can you do it? Yeah, he'll say, yeah, of course, let me do it. So I had founders who actually went and paid peanuts to some lawyer, and the lawyer had no clues about what he's talking, right? And then I said, if you're in this shape, I would actually take a full ride on you. You better go and get a lawyer. And then the guy went and bought a lawyer.
So it's better to have a lawyer before getting into the funding.
See, if you think that you are the best guy to do it, I can't stop you from doing that. But because I have done this in the last 10 years, it is very easy for me to put some small language in you and then control you forever. If you want to do that, you can go ahead and do it. It is always better to take an insurance than to crash land.
Thanks.
There's no legality of sweat equity. You do a secondaries and then you're done. Taxes are completely different. I completely believe that sweat equity is meaning nothing. I don't believe in sweat equity doing anything right now. Everyone is busy. Once you give the sweat equity, it's very difficult to actually find that guy spending time with you.
I am also a VC, so I just now went through, a month back, I just went through this headache of understanding the difference between MSOP and an ESOP. So I'm just clarifying. Yeah. So two things. As an investor, if a senior member is coming, so MSOPs cannot be allocated without the board approval. ESOPs are relatively easier. So as an investor, I'm just taking this from an investor lens. So if a senior person is coming in, I am more comfortable if MSOP is being issued. So, but for an ESOP, it can be provided to anyone without board approval. So generally, ESOPs are provided to slightly lower grade employees. So as a process, ESOPs are more easier to allocate. That's the first thing. And the second thing is in terms of an vesting period. I think MSOPs are more in line with how does a founder's shares are vested. So the vesting is relatively faster compared to an ESOP. So from an investor POV, I think if there is a significant amount of shares which are being granted to another co-founder, I will prefer an MSOP, but that's an investor viewpoint.
I just want to add 2 points to that. One, the commercials are completely okay. If people agree, then okay.
Yeah.
The second point is, when you do an MSOP, you still have to go to the board to create an MSOP pool.
Yeah.
Now, third point is, if you're creating an ESOP pool and you want to give it to the employees, there is always a threshold saying that if you want to give more, you need to come back. I just wanted to keep it clear.
Yeah, sure.
If I am already there, yes, because I'm also getting it diluted. Actually, I'm not sure if you've been there in the beginning. The board, even if I don't have a board seat, I can actually stop you from doing anything. Yeah. Board seat is more like an optic. It just doesn't mean. Probably you can answer. Like, do you think board seat is actually a very critical component than the clauses?
It depends how well you negotiate your AVMs. If it comes under your affirmative vote matters, then honestly you don't need a board seat. Just get all the good rights as an AVM, and you don't need a board seat, to be honest.
As long as you don't have Tiger Global, I don't think anything like that can happen. We are very restrictive. Like,
I just wanted to add to the ESOP and MSOP point. So, see,
lawyer is it?
Sorry, yeah.
Now you can listen to the lawyer.
So, see, compliance-wise, the reason why MSOPs are probably harder to give is because every director level and KMP level have remuneration-related compliances, right? So there's a threshold beyond which you cannot give. And ESOP pool and that point also comes as part of your package and compensation plan. Whereas there are lesser restrictions on compensation plans under the Companies Act when it comes to an ESOP. So it's only from that perspective that it really differs. But board approval is required for both, because without the board approval and thereafter a shareholder's approval, shares cannot be issued. So, and then of course the future compliances of, you know, the MCA filings and everything would get done. So also the terms of MSOPs and ESOPs would differ because the target audience to each shares are different. So that's. I just wanted to correct that because you were addressing it to everybody.
This is why you need a lawyer, right? Now we are also getting.
Yeah.
Educated.
So
yeah.
this is so the compliance is where mostly the differences come in.
Generally, the trend has been, as an investor, I won't need an ESOP. As an AVM, I won't need.
Yeah, for you, MSOPs make a lot more sense because you're entering into the KMP level position. But board approval is required for both.
I just wanted to add one point saying that MSOP comes only when ESOP is exhausted. So let's remove that.
That's okay, but I mean that's again the terms you can anyway dictate and decide. But I just wanted to correct on the compliance process. You cannot override a board approval for.
No, that is not what we meant. What we meant is we have reserve matters which stop us from.
No, that's fine. You can, of course, I mean, without your approval, you cannot have that passed and everything.
I already bought it. That's what I meant.
All right, sorry. Yeah, sure. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. In fact, I'll tell you something more interesting, right? I'll tell you something more interesting, right? I mean, if you read the restrictive clauses, you would understand that even before you go to the board, you need to take my permission. You need to write an email and then take a permission from me. So that's where it stops. I'll tell you something even more interesting, right? Of course, this is discounted to the lawyer who is already on the room, who probably will disagree to what I'm saying. So whenever you work on deals, if the opponent party, probably, you know, if both the guys are there in the industry for quite some time, they talk each other even without telling to us. They say, you know, I will negotiate on this, and then you give up to this, and then there is some role play that's happening there as well. So, yeah, I've seen that happening once. Do you agree to this? She would disagree, but she was laughing, so. She said yes, that's an yes. That's an yes. It's more like, you know, I'll go on a date types. I might go on a date types, yeah.
If it's not a yes, it's a no.
Yeah. You're not saying no, by the way.
I didn't say yes.
I said you, yeah, I don't want to talk it, but yeah, either happens. Is there how many lawyers? Oh, she's there already. She's asking the right questions then. 2 lawyers. I'm sorry. For me, founders and lawyers are very same. You know, they talk the same language, saying that I will not agree to this clause. Very dangerous. Very dangerous. Now I have to be like very careful when I'm talking to her. Yeah. No, it happens before the due diligence. It is like people are committing time and resources to do it. So it typically happens before the due diligence happens. The due diligence from the investment team might happen before that. So they would probably understand your technology, they will strip down on all the architecture and all that happens. But the financial and legal diligence happens after the term sheet signing. I would always find reasons to correct it. If it is completely not fixable, we give up. Yeah, please go ahead. You can take the mic and then talk. Is there a mic? You can give it to her.
From term sheet, you kickstart the process. Once you have signed the term sheet, you give access to the investor to your confidential data. That leads to the investor conducting a financial due diligence and a legal due diligence. Whatever red flag emerges out of the due diligence process, investor will divide it into two buckets. One is called condition precedent and one is called condition subsequent. All these will get reflected in your share purchase or share subscription agreement.
If it is fixable, if it is fixable.
Yeah, I'm just coming to that. So, condition precedents are those which you have to fulfill to get the investment in the company. So, if the condition precedents are not fixable, your deal has gone. They will not fund you. And the agreement itself will, in the termination clause, it will state that if the CPs are not fulfilled, the deal is gone. So those are the red flags that we are talking about. And condition subsequents are the lesser important items which the investor would like you to address in the company, but maybe later when the money comes in, because the compliances are not so grave, it is not a roadblock. Yep. So that is why a due diligence becomes very crucial, because it can make or break your deal.
I just go one statement against a lawyer. Anyway, lawyer would always suggest you to have the statement. Signing an NDA is never part of our... I mean, we never sign NDA. Not at a term sheet level also, we don't sign an NDA. I mean, we typically say that nothing is confidential to us. Yeah, still, we don't sign anything. You can ask him. Do you sign a NDA type language in any of the sheets? Any critical information? Yeah, that's it. Exclusivity, it has nothing to do with confidential information. No, it doesn't happen that way. Do you do that? I don't do that. I get all the data before that happens. I do complete diligence before that happens. I know the full architecture. I can...
That may be offline.
No. Hey, do you do that? We don't do that. We never... We never do any fancy term sheets. We do everything after that.
Yeah. So just one thing, we invest in consumer brands, okay? So for us, you can actually just, there is a GMV and then there is
everything
a
is critical, right?
All everything is
expenses
critical. So from an audit perspective, like, it differs. Yeah.
I'm a deep tech. I'll tell you what, I have seen every company, I can tell you what they work on. Lawyer problem. This is a lawyer.
I think I kind of concur with what she's saying. If the numbers don't stack up, people walk away. And the other thing is, like, from an investor's perspective, like, even while we have audited a lot, it's like while we have done our diligence, but we don't do the financial revenue reconciliation, right? I wouldn't have said that if the investor would have given me an MIS which has said that last month he has done 30 lakh of revenue, whether the actual 30 lakh rupee has actually hit the account or not, that I wouldn't have done before the term sheet. So if it doesn't happen, we walk away. Like that's
a diplomatic way of saying, but that's exactly what I said as well. I did not say anything beyond that. Yeah, CP and CS are more into definitive documents, so I didn't want to cover that. That is not on the cheat sheet as well.
Please, let's give him a great round of applause. And I hope it's clear that the right negotiation approach can make or break a deal.